So my talk isn't really about the work that we do. It's about a bigger philosophy that I wanted to explore. So just really briefly, we work in community development programs at around 53 villages in South Gujarat. We have incredible partnerships that help us do our work. And the type of work we do is around vocational training, hygiene education, health awareness and health camps, and a variety of other programs. But at the end of the day, we are a community development organization that focuses on cultivating dignity. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we arrived at this metric and how we use this metric. But in order to do that, I have to tell you a little bit about a personal story. So I'm gonna begin with that. I have been consumed by the Hindu concept of dharma for a really long time. I was intrigued by the stories my grandmother told me about dharma in the Hindu scriptures, and I was always fascinated that my parents would use dharma as an excuse to elicit the behavior they wanted out of me as a child at dinner parties. And I was always trying to understand what this concept really meant. And it's one of those words where if you ask 5 different scholars, you'll get 5 different responses. And the West tends to think of dharma as the word truth, thanks to the TV show Lost. And that isn't incorrect, it's just incomplete. And dharma, the concept of dharma, is really around your truth, your purpose, your role. And it's not a static concept, it's actually a fluid concept. So my dharma is different than your dharma, and my dharma today may not be my dharma tomorrow. And this is really kind of fascinating to me, this idea that your purpose could be fluid. Whether you're focused on being a student, or you're focused on being a good daughter-in-law, or you're focused on being a good caretaker for your parents, those are all things that could coexist at one time. So I think all humans struggle with this idea of what their purpose is. And how are you supposed to know what your purpose is, your dharma? How do you know if your culture tells you it's one thing, but your values tell you it's something else? And that kind of constant push and pull. There are days where I'm convinced that I know what my dharma is, and there are other days where I'm not even sure I understand the word. And now that I've literally proven against my entire thesis here, that I don't know what I'm talking about, I wanted you to hear how I connect these two ideas. Those of us here at the NGO Expo are probably thinking that we know generally what our dharma is, and it's something in the Save the World category. But I want to challenge you all to think more deeply about what that dharma is and how it came to be. When I shifted from working full-time in marketing to working for the foundation, I struggled with my dharma again. Of the 2 companies that my father started, I'm pretty sure he wanted me to take over the profitable one. And I ended up taking over the foundation, and we converted it into a public foundation because we found a model that worked. And I found in my purpose, in my journey, this application of my skills from the past that were making a real impact on the organization. We have a sewing program. It's one of my favorite programs at the organization. And we're able to measure clear results. $1,000, I can send 40 women to a 3-month sewing program, and almost 30 of them take the jobs that we've lined up for them at the factories, and they can earn almost $12,000 of capital over the course of the year. That's a very clear and tangible result that I can show up to a board member, show to a donor, and very clearly be able to say, this investment is yielding this result. 25 kilometers away, this exact same sewing program yields very different results. And those results are that no women take the sewing program. And it turns out that this region is just ever so slightly more conservative than the region that we were in. This factor matters. Now suddenly the women aren't maybe allowed to go get the jobs. So sitting in New York or sitting in Boston, one could look at that as a failure. And I said, no, there's more happening here. And so I went to the community, I spoke to the women, and I asked them, why didn't you take the job? And for some of them, they explained to me that, frankly, they didn't need a job. They actually just wanted to get out of the house because they lived in such a large joint family. They didn't interact with another human that they weren't related to. Another woman just said that it was an excuse for her to get out of the house and make some friends. And some other woman said, I just wanted to feel like I had a skill. She wanted to feel like she had one skill. Now, of course, these women have more than just one skill, but for them to feel like they have invested in themselves and taken the time to learn something was transformational for them. So to me, I look at these two programs, one where I have dollars and cents as a result, and one where I have dignity as a result. And how do I compare these two programs? So I went on to study the concept of dignity, not surprising because I'm a nerd, and I realized that there are, like dharma, dignity is this word that has really shifted its definition over time. When we first see the word dignity, dignitas, I promise I'm not going to give you a vocabulary lesson, it is about stature and your station. And then, all of a sudden, towards the 1700s, it becomes about this self-worth, this idea of what comes from within. And dignity is a very interesting concept because it has this internal and external value system associated with it, right? I can't take your dignity, but I can diminish it. And I can't hand you dignity, but I can help you earn it. And that was a really interesting concept to me, this push and pull. And then I started thinking about how these ideas work together. The idea that human dignity is this duality is very important because dharma sort of comes from the outside, right? Where you are, what station you're in, what your family situation is. And dignity is this internal and external term. There are a lot of great organizations out there doing a lot of work that have short-term charity solutions that are necessary, and I'm not discounting them. I'm just simply identifying a difference, right? So when you are doing something that's like handing shoes out or doing something that's a short-term solution to a charitable problem versus a long-term solution, like we've heard a lot today about, teaching people skills and allowing them to move beyond just that moment of need, and how that interacts with both dharma and dignity. We're sitting in this room thinking that we know what our dharma is, but we're only able to determine what our dharma is because we have dignity. How can you think about what you're worth if you don't know what you are or you don't have any self-worth at all? And the reason I bring this to you is a challenge as you go about your work and as you build your projects. Please think about the dignity that's being developed with your programs. Because oftentimes, charity can actually do the opposite. It can be seen as pity. And I don't want that to happen. I want for all of you to have sustainable programs where pity is not your outcome, but your outcome is dignity. And so interestingly, my life has been surrounded by the letter D. My last name is Desai. I've been obsessed with the word dharma, dignity, and here at the Desai Foundation, we try to cultivate dreams. And over the last decade, last couple decades, I've been obsessed with all three of these ideas. Cultivating dignity, generating it, sharing it, exposing it, and ensuring that we're using it to motivate people to change their lives. Oftentimes, some point in our lives, we're taught not to look at homeless people. I don't know when that happens, but someone somewhere along the line says, oh, don't look at that person. When you do catch an eye and you do take the moment to look at someone who is so out of luck or down on their luck, that simple exchange of a look is a little droplet of dignity. I haven't solved their problems, but that acknowledgement, that single drop of dignity that goes in, it is a currency that we can change. And I hope someday that I have the intellectual capacity or funds to create some sort of dignity index, the way that there is a health index and the way that there is a livelihood index, because I think that could be really powerful. So as it turns out, my dharma is to help cultivate dignity. Thank you very much.